Okay, so picture this, right? You walk back into this important building.
Mm.
It's meant to be all about global peace, diplomacy.
Yeah, pretty significant place here in D.C.
Exactly. And instead, the scene, well, the source material we're looking at today described it. It felt like something from a, quote, zombie apocalypse film.
Wow. That's quite an image.
It really is. And that image, it's kind of our starting point for this deep dive.
Right, so we're focusing on these recent news reports, yeah.
Okay.
About the state of the United States Institute of Peace, its headquarters, specifically after this particular team left the building.
That's it. We're digging into reports that are based heavily on firsthand accounts, especially, it seems, from the USIP's head of security.
Okay.
So our mission here really is to unpack what these sources actually say was found inside. And, get the context. Why was this team there? What were they doing? And touch on some related stuff the articles brought up.
Sounds good. It sounds like, well, like you said, a really messy exit to unpack.
Definitely. But maybe before we dive into the mess itself, let's just quickly set the scene. What do the sources tell us about USIP?
Sure. So the sources describe it as an independent nonprofit organization. It's actually funded by Congress, set up back in 1984 under Reagan.
Wait.
And its main job, according to the text, is basically helping the U.S. prevent and, resolve international conflicts. So, yeah, diplomacy, stability. That's the goal.
Right. Which makes finding it in chaos quite the contrast.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. According to these accounts, especially from the head of security, Colin O'Brien, that zombie apocalypse, quote,
Yeah.
what specific things did the sources actually report finding?
Well, the reports list some pretty unpleasant details. O'Brien apparently described seeing cockroaches and rats and used the word abundant.
Abundant. Okay, not great.
No. And there was also a distinct smell, evidence of marijuana use. One report actually quotes O'Brien directly saying, smoking Wyatt in the building. I think they meant weed.
Smoking weed.
Yeah.
Inside a congressionally funded building dedicated to peace efforts. That's pretty striking on its own. What else?
There were empty beer bottles left around, laptops just sort of piled up, and chargers, like phone chargers and things, just dumped in the trash bins.
So general disarray plus pests plus potential illegal activity inside the building.
Seems that way based on the reports. And it wasn't just, clutter or hygiene issues. The sources also mentioned actual physical damage.
Like what?
Apparently, ceiling tiles were mysteriously missing, just gone throughout the building.
Missing. Not fallen, but missing.
That's how it's described, yeah. Mysteriously missing. Plus, there was water damage noted.
Okay.
And maybe one of the more symbolic things mentioned in the sources, the main USIP logo, like the sign on the wall, reportedly torn off.
Torn off the wall.
Yeah. And even the USIP flags from the flagpoles outside, they were gone too. O'Brien speculated in the source that maybe they were taken as, quote, war trophies.
War trophies from the Institute of Peace. That phrase really lands, doesn't it? It suggests something beyond just carelessness, like antagonism, or just a profound lack of respect for the place.
It certainly paints a picture that goes beyond simple untidiness, yeah. It suggests maybe deliberate acts or at least a complete disregard.
Right. And O'Brien's overall take, as quoted in the articles.
Pretty blunt. He's quoted saying, these people had no idea how to run a building. It was pure neglect.
Pure neglect. And the cost to fix all this. Did the sources mention that?
They did. According to O'Brien, the estimate was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for repairs.
Wow, hundreds of thousands. Okay. So that definitely paints the picture of the state things were left in.
Yeah. So the obvious next question, which the reports address, is who was this team? And, why were they in the USIP building in the first place?
Exactly.
The sources identify the group that was occupying the building, the ones linked to the mess, as being associated with Elon Musk. Sometimes the text refers to them as Team Musk or even, oddly, Doge.
Doge. Okay. And the backstory. Why were they there?
Well, the sources explain that this team's presence was connected to a bigger situation. There was apparently an attempt by the Trump administration earlier this year to basically dismantle the USC.
Dismantle it, like shut it down.
Yeah, and dismiss most of its staff. That was the reported plan. The reports also mentioned that even before this team finally left, Trump had previously had the actual USIP personnel removed from the building by agents.
Okay, so there was some real friction there already.
Seems like it. And the reason this Musk-associated team eventually left the headquarters, according to these accounts, a judge stepped in.
A judge?
Yeah, a judge issued an order that blocked the administration's attempt to dismantle the institute and fire the staff. So that legal ruling effectively ended their occupation of the building.
Right. So the messy condition, we know who the sources say, was this Team Musk. And the context involves this political battle over the future of USP itself.
Exactly. And the articles we looked at also highlight another angle, connecting back to one of the specific findings in the office.
Let me guess. The marijuana.
You got it. The sources note that the evidence of marijuana use found in the building sort of feeds into, or at least is mentioned alongside, existing rumors about Elon Musk's own alleged drug use.
Ah, okay. How do they frame that?
Well, the source we're summarizing mentions the office finding, and then it goes on to report on what it says was in a New York Times report, allegations of pretty extensive drug use by Musk, listing things like LSD, cocaine, ecstasy, often supposedly at private parties.
Right. And it's important, like you said, we're reporting on what our source says about what the NYT allegedly reported. We're not confirming the NYT report itself.
Precisely. Maintaining that distance is key here. It's about what the source material we reviewed contains.
And did these articles include Musk's side of that, his response?
Yes, they did. They quote a statement from him via X, his platform, where he strongly denies extensive drug use. The quote is, "I use NO drugs. The New York Times is lying."
Okay. Straightforward denial there.
The source material also makes a point of bringing up that specific incident back in 2018. Remember when Musk smoked a joint live on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Right. That got a huge amount of attention at the time. So the source connects the office finding to the wider discussion in that past incident.
Seems to be the connection the source is drawing, yes.
And did the sources say if either Elon Musk or the White House commented specifically on this situation? You know, the state of the UZP office after the team left.
According to the sources we reviewed, no. Neither Musk nor the White House provided comment on these particular revelations about the office condition and the findings there. And just one last detail the sources included, kind of relevant to the political backdrop. They mention Elon Musk's current relationship with the Trump administration.
Oh, what do they say?
The report states that he's no longer formally working for the government in any capacity, but he remains, and this is a quote, a friend and advisor to the president.
A friend and advisor. Okay, noted.
So yeah, that pretty much covers the key details reported in the sources we looked at.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap for everyone listening. We've got these reports describing, pretty shocking conditions at the USP headquarters: pests, trash, weed smoke, actual damage like torn logos and missing flags.
Right, and all this discovered after a team associated with Elon Musk departed.
A team whose presence there, the sources say, was linked to this whole political attempt to dismantle the USP, an attempt that was ultimately blocked by a judge.
And the reports also connect the finding of marijuana in the office to wider existing discussions and rumors about Musk's alleged drug use, which he denies.
And crucially, all these details we've discussed, they come directly from the source material we examined for this deep dive, which seems to rely heavily on the account from the USIP's head of security.
Yeah, that's the core of it, synthesizing all that. We've basically looked at this really vivid account of disorder, placed it in its political context as reported, and noted how the sources link it to these other narratives.
Exactly. And when you step back from the specifics, this whole account, detailed as it is in the sources, it really does raise some broader questions, doesn't it? Like, what does this tell you, perhaps, about how transitions of power or influence happen?
Or about the level of respect, maybe, that's shown towards institutions, especially during times of political upheaval.
Yeah. And why does drilling down into these specific details directly from the sources actually matter for understanding the bigger picture?
Well, I think this single account, as presented, certainly makes you think about things like accountability, right? And what happens or doesn't happen during these high-stakes transitions, regardless of who the players are.
It really does. It leaves you with this thought, maybe. What does the actual physical state that a place like this is left in? What does that reveal? About the attitudes, the respect or lack thereof held by those who were temporarily in charge towards the institution itself?
That's definitely something to mull over. The physical evidence of, well, whatever went on there.